Hello and welcome to today's daily response video from People Make It Work. Today I am delighted to be joined by Caroline Collier. Hello Caroline.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here and spending time with us. Caroline has such a depth of experience within the arts and culture world and a huge passion in supporting people and organisations to thrive within their environments. We find ourselves in a rather new environment. And to start us off, Caroline, just how are you? How are you in this moment and in the last 6 weeks?
Well, I'm paused here in where I live in Sussex, and I have the inverse really of the sort of way that I normally live, which is in isolation in terms of living in my house as a rule, because I have my son, daughter-in-law, and two very young children who are with me. They normally live in Beijing, and they've been with me since January. And that's very, very unusual for me. So I have some insight into what it's like to be trying to focus on work when you have a 3.5-year-old and a 15-month-old in the house, in a very small house as well.
Yeah, I'm experiencing my brother with two little ones and trying to work his work schedule around it and everything that is bringing into his life right now. So yeah, I can feel that too. Can you give us some of your thoughts whilst you've been in this space? Any insights that have been arising for you?
Well, I think just leading on from what you've said and what I've said about our own situations, what I've been noticing in the conversations that I've been having with people running cultural organizations or artists or friends is that you're looking into spaces you don't normally see into, the sort of intimacies of people's living spaces. It could be their office, but quite often people aren't set up quite like that. So they might be in the corner of a bedroom or a child's bedroom even. And you become so conscious, I think, of the multiple roles that we all have. But when you're in the office with someone, this can become much less visible. And you're so driven by what you're trying to do or the moment you're in, the job that they're doing, the role that they're taking, your own priority versus theirs, that you can forget that. And I think this is such a reminder that we bring to work our whole person. And good leaders and managers always try to get through to that, I know. But this is such a physical, although it's virtual, it actually gives us, visually anyway, and orally sometimes, the dog barking, the child crying, the delivery person arriving, a sense of those multiple responsibilities, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. I think that remembrance that we have so many different sides to ourselves and the kind of bringing it back to being human.
Yeah, it is a reminder of the complexity of human relationships and the delights as well, of course. Yeah.
And yeah, can you continue on any other insights that have arisen?
Well, for me again, whether you're an organization or an individual, I think thinking about your essence, your mission, your core values as a way of navigating uncertainty or any environment really, but even more so when things are unstable, is incredibly important. And so you are more, I think, thrown on your own resources. If you're working remotely, as many people are. Of course, I'm talking about people in the cultural sector who are much more likely to be working remotely. And some people have, had their entire income removed. So it's not a sort of light space for, it's a lovely pause and we can all reflect. It's got incredibly urgent and serious dimensions. even, I say even for us because we're not health workers, and it has. But at the same time, I think thinking about sort of problem versus opportunity, it really does give an opportunity to think differently and behave differently and consider what's important. Because in order to carry anything forward, I think you need to sort of strip back to what really matters, to what the purpose is.
Have you got any places we can go for food for thought, or any ideas of resources that you've been finding quite powerful at this time to help with those questions, to help with those insights?
Well, first of all, there are so many free resources. So I've been noticing so much generosity and kindness and empathy, and that's come out as, and People Make It Work is part of that, offering, without payment, so much, whether that's an art experience from, one of the grandest opera houses, whether it's a workshop on, how to make a mobile, whether it's a dance class that's on YouTube from Sadler's Wells, just so much free, resource. And also things like the Federation of Creative Industries, Creative Industries Federation, offering free membership to independents at the moment, the AMA offering webinars on reflection, free for now. So all of those, there's so many resources that's brilliant, I think. And that generosity of response is fantastic. When I'm thinking about time and making an opportunity of a problem, actually a self-help book, which I was given years ago by a colleague, and it's Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm afraid it went to the charity shop in one of my clear outs at one point. And then I thought about it and I got hold of it again. And he is so brilliant, I think, on believing in your values and then carrying that out. And he has a very good sort of quadrant of the use of time. And he talks about urgent and important, and how most of us are caught up in the urgent. And very rarely do we have the time to think about the important and not urgent. But it's there that the self-nourishing, that the planning, the research, the reflection, the looking for opportunity rather than dealing with problems exists. So actually it's a really helpful, I think it's a really profound, really very good practical book based on really strong ethical principles. So I recommend that. And in thinking of time too, and the distinction between urgency and a sense of ease, which if you're going to have a good conversation, somehow you need to create a sense of time away from urgency. And I think Nancy Klein's Time to Think is really very good in the book. That's another sort of very well-known textbook, but really useful, I think, on creating a space to listen and to think. But she has a particular remarks to make about creating a sense of ease. Mm-hmm. So both of those are useful for me. But the metaphor that I've been thinking about a lot is from an article in the Financial Times at the beginning of April by Arundhati Roy, which you may have read. And she talks about the mind sort of darting about, trying to, it is at the end of the article, which is about the impact of COVID and a lot about Indian politics. And at the end, she talks about people, or us, trying to stitch together the future into the past, or the past into the future, without acknowledging the rupture. And she suggests that pandemics do create rupture and do create a portal, as she puts it, or a gateway, and you can choose what you carry through that gateway. And I find that an incredibly useful exercise personally, to think, what would I carry through? What do I wish to carry through? And what would I fight for, as she says, when I walk through that portal.
Mm.
And I've noticed that the leaders of arts organisations are finding it incredibly demotivating when they're making plans, to reopen their spaces in the summer, whatever it might be, and then they have to rethink. And actually, by shifting this portal to a little further ahead, thinking, what will I carry through it, but not worrying too much about, the month, as it were, but probably thinking of a bigger chunk of time and having your time to prepare your luggage, light luggage it might be, but what you're going to take through to the other side. And then you can always bring your practical plans forward.
Exactly.
And I think my view is it's, much more energizing to bring something forward so we can do it sooner than it is to have to keep putting back. So I would say make a space for change and difference, allow it to be there, connect with your teams as whole people, and allow a vision to evolve. So without rushing to practical.
Mm.
Now, that's very easy to say when you're not having to put together a budget for next year, I know. But actually, I think the budget falls into place better too when you take that longer term view, thinking about what's really important to carry through that portal.
Thank you for sharing that really useful perspective and past resources, and then that relatively new resource from the Financial Times and piece of writing. I love the visual of the gateway, and I feel like that is a positive visual to look at.
It's quite a nice exercise to think, what will I take, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
I've got a couple of where's the self-help as well as the self-help books. I have got a poem and an image if you like them.
Yeah, absolutely. Please leave us with that.
Or a poet and an image. Yeah. Because the other thing is, maybe it's the God of Small Things, maybe it's moving on from Roy, but I go to Gerard Manley Hopkins when I'm sort of thinking about living in very difficult circumstances and having an intensity of feeling and joy. And the poem Pied Beauty is brilliant for that. So that's something that I often return to, in difficult times. Works for me. And in thinking about your core or your organization's core, I find Jung's image of the rhizome that he talks about in his very late autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections. I hope I've got them in the right order. And for me, that feeding of the core, or rhizome, is bound to lead. People want often, success, action, movement, but without good soil and a good strong rhizome, your flowers and fruits will be so much more beautiful if you do that, and also much less likely to be beset by pests and bugs. So I feel it takes us back in a way to the humanity, to the whole person. And I think that can be applied to organizations too. I believe organizations have a spirit too.
Could you give us the name of the poem one more time and the poet?
Yes, it's Gerard Manley Hopkins. He's a 19th century poet. He was a Jesuit monk, and he suffered a lot and he saw a lot of beauty. And the poem is called Pied Beauty.
Okay, I'm going to go and find that.
It's a lovely poem, I think.
Caroline, thank you so much for sharing you and your thought space right now, and some really useful food for thought for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.